Are you guys excited to go back to trig? Because I am. All right. We're going to start doing the trig review, and then we're going to go into law of sines and law of cosines, which the reason we did not cover that with trig was that oh so lovely state test and the fact that that doesn't cover it. But you're going to get into law of sines and law of cosines in Algebra 2 next year and in pre-calc if you take it. It also crops up on the ACT and the SAT, which is why we cover it when we do. I save it for after state testing normally. You know, this is the same thing. So we're going to go ahead and review everything you know about trig, and then we're going to move into that law of sines and law of cosines. So just to recap, this is a trig cheat sheet. I will take a picture of this, scan it in as a PDF, and that way you can have it if you want. Things to remember: your calculator must be in degrees, calculator, phone, whatever you're using. Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. To find the missing side of a right triangle, you're going to need that. SOHCAHTOA, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So you use sine, cosine, and tangent to find your missing sides. You use the inverse functions, those negative ones, to find missing angles. Remember how you whined that I took down your posters in the classroom? Well, hey, now you can make your own posters. So moving right along, your trig review. So this one, and you've done this worksheet before, so some of you may have this. Do me a favor and just redo it just to rejog your memory. This one's ratios. That is all it wants. Ratio, if you remember, is a fancy word for a fraction, and we want all fraction in simplest form. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and erase some of my work, and that way you can kind of see what I did without getting too awfully confused. Yeah, we're just gonna erase. And some of that's in pen, so obviously I can't erase it. But you are given, sorry, I'll move a little closer. You're given 15 and you're given 36. You are missing the hypotenuse of your triangle. You cannot make all of your ratios unless you have all three sides. So we've got to find our C. To do that, we run Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. You should know how to run that by now. So that gives you your hypotenuse of 39 units. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to find sine, cosine, and tangent of angle R. Angle R is, right here. So we went through and we labeled everything. So for R, our opposite is over here. So opposite, this is your adjacent of angle R, and this is your hypotenuse of angle R. The pencil, if you cannot tell, the pencil has to do with angle R. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So we would put 15 over 39. 15 over 39, that reduces to 5/13. So this is your answer. Your cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So 36 over 39. Reduce 12 over 13. Your tangent is opposite over adjacent. So that's 15 over 36, which reduces to 5/12. So that takes care of angle R. It also asks you for sine of angle T, cosine of angle T, and tangent of angle T. So what I did was I went through and labeled those in pen. So that's T. My opposite of angle T is here. My adjacent to angle T is here. And my hypotenuse, that's still, right here. So your hypotenuse never moves. It's the opposite and adjacent that flip-flop. So if I want sine, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so 36 over 39. We already did that, right? 36 over 39. If you remember, these two always match, these two always match, and these two are reciprocals of one another. But we'll go through and do the fractions anyway. Your cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so 15 over 39, which reduces to 5/13. There we go. And then your tangent is opposite over adjacent, so 36 over 15, which reduces to 12/5. So that is ratios only. 7 through 14 wants you to find sides and angles, so you're finding two different things. These ones, you actually have to run the equation. So you have to set up, all right, I've got an angle right here. I've got 38 degrees. of my 38, that's my hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is always across from the 90. It would help if you could see that, huh? This is my adjacent. Adjacent means that it shares a vertex, right? And, that shares a vertex with 38 degrees. So adjacent and hypotenuse use the trig function cosine. So cosine of 38 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. From here, you're solving for x. How do you get 21 out of the denominator? You multiply by 21 on both sides. It cancels over here, and you get x equals 21 times the cosine of 38. You type that into your phone calculator, whatever you're using, and you get an easy 16.5. And you're rounding to the 10th. This set of directions actually tells you. None of the rest do. This one does. So number 8, you come to the angle that you're given. You're given this angle right here. Well, 90's here, which makes this automatically the hypotenuse, and you're not given any values. So instead, you are given the opposite and the adjacent. Opposite and adjacent, those key words are tangent. So tangent of 23 equals 25 over x. This is one of those ones where x is in the denominator. If you remember, we went about this a really long way. I'm going to flip this over and show you that really long way. So tangent of 23 equals 25 over x. You can multiply by x on both sides. So you get x times the tangent of 23 equals 25 because these cancel, right? And then if you want that x by itself, you've got to divide by the tangent of 23. These cancel, and you get x equals 25 divided by the tangent of 23. And then you type that in. If you remember, what I tried to teach you was that this and this look oddly familiar, right? All we did was take the x and the tangent and we flip-flopped them. So you can do it either way, either write it out or flip-flop. But either way, when you type it in, you get 58.9. So 9 and 10, it's the same thing, guys. You're just running the formulas, and we've done this enough that I'm not going to walk you through it. I do have faith in you. 11 and 12, I'm going to walk you through. So the reason I'm walking you through these ones is our x on these ones, it's an angle. It's an angle instead of being a side. You started out the same way, though. You're focusing on that angle. So 15 is the opposite. 23 is the hypotenuse. Those two key words is sine. So sine of x is 15 over 23. This is where we want to separate the sine and the x. So it ends up being x equals the inverse sine of 15 over 23. You type that into your calculator or phone exactly as you see it. And I know your phones have an inverse sine option. You just have to get your, what is it? It's like a expanded calculator. And y'all have access to it. I know you do. Mine, I turn it sideways. I know some of the iPhones, you may have to do something with your auto rotate, but you have it. You have access to it. And if you don't, download Desmos for the next little bit, because we're going to be doing a lot of calculator use. But anywho, you get 40.7. If you do download Desmos, by the way, make sure that when you do this, your mode is in degrees, because Desmos has been begun automatically setting to radians. I don't know why. So 12, same kind of thing. Our x is on the inside. In this case, we're given the opposite and the adjacent. That's tangent. So tangent of x equals 37 over 8. We don't want regular tangent. We want the inverse because we're trying to find an angle. So inverse tangent of 37 over 8 is 77.8 degrees. So, 13 and 14, they're all worked out for you. They're labeled for you. I think you can figure it out on your own. 15 through 18, those were your angles of elevation and angles of depression, where I made you draw pictures, heaven forbid. So, draw a picture for each problem, then solve for the missing part. Yeah, just making sure that's all we're doing for today. So the angle of elevation from a soccer ball on the ground to the top of the goal is 34 degrees. So essentially, soccer ball is right here. We want to the top of the goal, that's 34 degrees. If the goal is 8 feet tall, so that's where the 8 comes in, what is the distance from the ball to the goal? If you remember when we went over this, I had to insert the word horizontal into most of these. It doesn't want that. It does not want the slant. It wants the actual horizontal distance from the ball to the goal. It's always going to want horizontal. So in terms of my 34 degrees, 8 is my opposite. That x that I'm looking for is my adjacent. Which trig function deals with opposite and adjacent? That would be tangent. So tangent of 34 degrees equals x over 8. Again, my x is in the denominator, so this is where I've either got to do that really long solving or do my flip-flop and get the x equals 8 divided by the tangent of 34, and that gives me 11.9 feet. Number 16 is another angle of elevation. I've got it all worked out for you. The only difference between 15 and 16 is that you have to add in Sarah's height at the very end of the problem. So if you get that 299.5, you've got to add in her height to get that the Statue of Liberty is 305 feet tall. Same concepts. So 17 is an angle of depression instead. The angle of depression from the top of a cruise ship to the top of the sailboat is 22 degrees. Cruise ship, sailboat. We're going down. If you remember, we talked about this pretty extensively, I think. Your angle of depression is your line of sight down. So you're talking about this angle in here is 22 degrees. Well, we didn't like that, so we used alternate interior angles. Remember, two parallel lines cut by a transversal. Alternate interiors are congruent. So if this angle is 22, then this angle is 22. Anywho, sitting above the water, the cruise ship is 236 feet tall, while the sailboat is 27 feet tall. Find the distance between the cruise ship and the sailboat. So we need horizontal distance here. The problem is it tells us that this is 236 feet tall and this is 27, and we're going from the top of the mast to the top of the mast. So this 27 feet is completely irrelevant. So we've got to take it out of both. So this 209 comes from taking 236 minus 27 to get that. In terms of my angle, that 209 is my opposite. The x is my adjacent. That's tangent. If you cannot remember, I'm telling you right now, angle of elevation and depression is always tangent. So tangent of 22 degrees equals opposite over adjacent. Our x is in the denominator, so we do the flip-flop. 209 divided by the tangent of 22 gives us 517.3 feet apart. And then 18 is all set up for you. It's the same kind of thing. It's another angle of depression. I didn't draw his angle in though. His line of sight is coming out this way, which puts his angle of depression right here. And that is congruent to that. So we focus on this bottom triangle instead. It's 35 feet tall. You're looking for horizontal distance. So let me know if you have questions. I think you all should be fine with this though. And then we'll pick up with law of sines and law of cosines later.